Hello. So what I'd like to do today is to go ahead and cover a topic that is very controversial among the retro gaming community, and that is the topic of reproductions, also known as repros, fakes, or whatever else people choose to call them. And I want to clarify that what I'm talking about here are the mass-produced reproductions that are coming out of China. I'm not talking about the ones that people make on their own, with their own devices, like the Retro Stage N64 blaster or something like that. And I am also going to be really focusing on specifically N64 reproductions here, so I do want to clarify that as well. So anyways, when you go on various different forums, groups, Reddit, or whatever it might be for your source of information, you're going to find some very polarizing views on these things. On the one hand, you're going to find individuals who are very, very staunch supporters of the reproductions, and then you're also going to find the people who are just adamantly, almost violently opposed to these reproductions. And quite honestly, you are going to unfortunately run into those individuals who are just full-on militant whack job when it comes to their opinion on these things. And unfortunately, these individuals are very big on opinion and passion, but very little on fact. So they're really not doing a credit or help to themselves or anybody else in the gaming community. So just go ahead and ignore these people, and try and get more objective responses. Because honestly, both camps have merit. So, on the one hand, you're going to find the individuals who are very, very supportive of the reproductions because they bring up, some valid points like, hey, look, I want something that looks and feels just like the real deal. I can play it straight in my N64 and it looks just like the real deal, plays like the real deal, but I don't want to pay that ridiculous collector pricing that's just gotten insane on a lot of N64 titles and other games on other consoles as well. And so, that is a very valid point. You get something that looks and feels just like the real deal for anywhere from $18 to about $23 if you purchase from an eBay seller, which can save you literally hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in some extreme cases. So anyway, that's valid. They also want a game where the cartridge pins haven't had, 20 to 25 years of constant wear and tear on them. So that is a valid point as well. Now, on the other side of things, arguably the biggest knock and the biggest thing that people who are detractors of reproductions bring up, and it is a very valid one, which is, unfortunately, there's a number of scammers out there who are trying to pass off these reproductions, fakes, in this case, fakes, as the real deal when it comes to games where the real deal is worth a fair bit of money. So, for me to go and buy a copy of Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut, a mass-produced reproduction coming out of China, for $20 to $22, and then to turn around and try and sell it for $800 to $900 as the real deal to some unsuspecting newbie, that's just despicable. And yeah, it is a very valid point. I would agree completely that this is a practice that should not be happening, but unfortunately is. So that's the biggest knock against reproductions, and it's a very valid point. The next one is that, in general, the quality control standards from these mass-produced ones coming out of China is that not that they're good, not that they're bad, but they're consistently inconsistent in terms of quality control standards. Starting with the quality control on the flash boards. So the flash boards, along with the CIC chips, and for the games that have, EEPROM, SRAM, flash RAM, etc., that have the onboard memory saves, when you're talking about something that is being sold here in the US for between $18 and $23, you can imagine what their production costs have to be kept to in order to get these things produced and make a profit off of them. So anyways, there are definite documented issues with these reproductions when it comes to games that have lost game saves. You can't save them anymore. or games that just glitch out, break down, the flashboard, burns out, breaks down, whatever you want to call it. And yes, there are documented cases of this that are backed up. So yes, that is a bit of a risk that you do take when it comes to these mass-produced reproductions. So in addition to that, you also run into the problem and question of where on earth did they source this ROM from? Which ROM is it? Anybody who's been in emulation or has gone out there searching for ROMs knows that for any given classic retro game, particularly the more higher sought after, more demanded titles, you can find literally thousands of different ROMs out there for the exact same game, and there's everything from the ROMs that are just straight, clean dump from the original cartridge that are very stable, very dependable, to the really bizarre, goofy fan hacks that are out there, or various different beta versions that are very, very glitch prone and problematic. And the question is, which ROM did they use to flash to the flashboard? And the fact of the matter is, you don't know when it comes to the mass-produced reproductions, because you weren't the one who was flashing the ROM to the flashboard. So anyways, that's another issue, is that, you end up with a bad ROM flash on there, and you're going to end up with a very miserable and frustrating experience with games that glitch, freeze, don't hold saves, whatever it could be. So that is something to be aware of as well. In addition to that, there is the obvious factor of the fact that the shell casing tends to be thinner plastic. They have gone to, thankfully, at least putting in the protective metal plating in there, although they did something really cheap, which was they didn't include the inner screws on the metal plating. I actually have 4 of these mass-produced reproductions, and I have taken them apart, and what I found was that on the inner metal protective plating that they put in there, the 2 Phillips screws that you find on all of the authentic cartridges that help, make absolutely certain that that's secured to the front of the cartridge, are missing on every single one of the reproductions that I've seen. So they're just depending on that sort of, the metal plating kind of fitting together snug is holding it in place, which is great if you're just walking around carrying the game, or if it's just sitting in its case. But if you accidentally drop it, yeah, you got a little bit more of a problem there. So anyways, that's the other issue, is that sometimes the casing and the inner screws and that sort of thing, just some corners that are cut there to keep costs down. And so it kind of really makes you wonder what kind of quality control standards are going on these things. So I do want to clarify that, I do actually have 4 of these mass-produced reproductions. I went and bought these before I really knew a whole lot about reproductions. I mean, I knew 3 out of the 4 of them I knew were reproductions. The other one I was kind of duped on. So not happy about that, but, lesson learned. So anyways, but after doing all this, I get the merits, for the people who enjoy them, for, the low cost and having the look and feel of the real deal. But for my personal opinion and my personal recommendation, I personally will not buy another mass-produced reproduction from China just because of the consistently inconsistent quality control standards. So, as I said, that's just my personal opinion. Generally, I do encourage people not to buy these mass-produced reproductions out of China. There are some good, viable alternatives, in my opinion, to them. And I will go ahead and discuss those in another video. But anyways, these are just the things to be aware of when you're looking at reproductions, and just things to consider before you go out there and purchase one. That, yes, you can get one that'll last years and it'll save you a ton of money and it'll look and feel just like the real deal. But on the other hand, you could possibly end up in a situation where you spend, $20 to $30, depending on where you buy it from, and you end up with something that's basically toast within a year. So it really just kind of depends. Right now, as it sits, I don't have any problems with the 4 mass-produced reproductions that I have, but I've also had them for just under a year, so only time will tell and see if these things end up developing any issues over the next few years. And anyways, that's all I've got, and thanks for watching.